Alrighty, it looks like our audience has stabilized, so I'm going to get things started. Hello and welcome to Running TTRPGs for Kids, the latest in Game RT's webinar series. I'm Danielle Costello. I'm a research and instruction librarian for Louisiana State University and also the current Games RT event programming co-chair. In particular for today, I'm the host and tech crew for our presenters. This event is being recorded. The recording will be available to GameRT members 6 months before becoming publicly available on the GameRT website. We're also live streaming the session on Twitch. Hello, everyone on Twitch. Twitch video on demand will also be accessible after 6 months, member only period. If you aren't following us already on Twitch, please do so. We have a lot of our content and our various shenanigans that happen on that channel. So links will be available to all these places soon in the chat. For anyone not previously familiar with Games RT, we are the Games and Gaming Roundtable of the American Library Association. Our mission is to promote gaming in libraries, whether that's programming, collection development, community building, prototyping, playtesting, or research. We have it all there, and we are ready and excited to help librarians get into it. Games RT has two professional development series, a webinar series, which you're watching now, and a learn and play series. These events usually alternate each month, but before we start today's session, if you could pop the slides open, please.
Yep.
I'd like to talk about a couple of events we're going to have upcoming.
I'm almost there.
No worries. Excellent. So, in the month of March, at the very end of March, the 31st, we're going to be scheduling our mini conference on tabletop role playing games. So, if you've come for the role playing games now, we will have a much larger session with several presenters being able to go through a wide array of tabletop games played within the various professions of librarianship, as well as across the professional sphere and the hobbyist sphere as well. Then also upcoming, so get ready. Annual conference is coming. Games RT will be running the Gaming Grove and the gaming graphic novel and gaming's pavilion. Ooh, a mouthful. In the exhibition floor. So you can come out, hang out with us. There's also going to be an ALA play on Friday, June 23rd. And we're going to just be playing a ton of games from TTRPGs to board games. So if you have a chance to go to annual, check us out, come and join us and see what we're all about. And we also have a ton of live streaming events. We don't have our schedule yet for next month, but we will be having video games, TTRPGs, and roundtables discussions and more. So keep an eye out on the Twitch for that. So if we could proceed one more slide, please. I'd like to introduce our presenters today, Amanda Blau and Rebecca Strang. Amanda is a children's programming coordinator at Downers Grove Public Library in Illinois. Her favorite gaming moments are always the ones that result in laughter, and she worked in libraries for over 20 years and loves that she's still learning new things. Rebecca is the children's librarian for Naperville Public Library in Illinois. She's also the president of our gaming roundtable. She has taught gaming studies in Loyola, there we go, University Chicago, and she loves games, crafts, and cats, and believes that play is essential human experience, and games are a vehicle for play, education, and community building. Thank you for presenting with us today, and Rebecca and Amanda, I've handed over to you.
Yay, thank you, Danielle. So we want to get started just by defining what a tabletop role-playing game is for anyone who is not experienced with TTRPGs. And at its basic level, a tabletop role-playing game is a storytelling game where players each act as a character in a story, and they describe their character's actions through speech or text, and they use the game's rules to determine their character's abilities and outcomes of the things that they're doing. And there is a game master who organizes the game setting, officiates the rules, and moderates player interactions with the story and with the other players. Next slide, please. So why tabletop role-playing games for kids? The first reason is play itself. Play is a naturally sought out activity. It makes us happy, it boosts our energy, and it's good for our mental health. And tabletop role-playing games are an outlet for play. We can often get caught up on providing a bunch of other reasons for why gaming is a good thing, but play as an end is okay. We don't always need to validate why we want to play. But I know that we often do need to validate play as essential when we're trying to convince others for why it should be happening. So tabletop role-playing games are also educational. Players can experience many different kinds of learning moments while they're playing, but sessions can also be tailored to explore specific topics that fit within classroom lessons, whether you decide to explore the past or a specific place, or maybe you're going to meet a wizard who needs you to acquire the correct components for a chemical potion. Role-playing games exercise the brain and the body. Players practice logic, reasoning, critical thinking, and memory recall when they're solving problems or puzzles in game. They use hand-eye coordination and manual dexterity when they're rolling dice or moving miniature figures across a map. And of course, reading comprehension when they're reading through rules or even game prompts, and they will definitely be exercising their imagination. They'll also be socializing. So whether you end up playing in person or online, players are always interacting with one another and building relationships with other players and their game masters. And they're also practicing communication skills. They negotiate, persuade, and bluff their way to quest completions. They learn and share information, and they might even have to give a speech or write a letter to complete a quest. Players also practice teamwork and collaborative thinking. They have to work together to accomplish tasks. They'll need to recognize the strengths of their fellow players to solve problems, and they can also learn from failure in a safe place. And of course, games tell stories. And working in libraries, we're surrounded by media that tells stories, and games are no different. Tabletop role-playing games offer a unique experience for collaborative storytelling and even work well as writing prompts. You can have players writing up session reports or short stories based on the events that happen in their games. Next slide, please. And so those are some of the reasons why we should be playing tabletop role-playing games with kids, but some additional tools for convincing others that this should be happening. First, I want to make sure that you've all had a chance to get the link for the handout for this session. It should be provided in chat both here on Zoom and on Twitch. But there are several articles listed on that handout that would be great for reading and sharing with management or teachers or parents, whoever you're trying to convince that this play is beneficial and should be happening. But you can also demonstrate that there's a community desire for this kind of programming, showing that your patrons or your students have been asking for tabletop role-playing games. You can also let them know that tabletop role-playing game rule books can be added to a circulating collection, which can then be supported by a tabletop role-playing program. And you can emphasize the importance of quality programs that bring patrons back repeatedly to the library and help to build lifelong library users. I know we all have to report numbers and make sure that we're sticking to staff time budgets and dollar budgets, but we don't want to lose the importance of quality interactions with our community and let those quality interactions get lost in those numbers. Some of my favorite things about running these programs is hearing from our kids and their parents about how participating in our RPG clubs has helped them make friends, become better storytellers, learn new ways to communicate, or even just help them practice things like being patient, which helps them in all areas of life. Tabletop role-playing games are also directly connected to most, if not every, library mission that involves community building and storytelling, because at the core, that's what tabletop role-playing games are. And they're also a great opportunity for volunteers. If you have limited staff time, you can recruit volunteers for making props for your games, running your games, being additional players for your games if you need some adult to kids support. So it's a really great opportunity for volunteers if you get the chance as well. Next slide, please. All right, this slide is a general outline for how we plan our programs when we're getting started. Some of the key factors that we're looking at. So the first thing that we do is we're choosing a facilitator. This is going to be the folks who are running the program, and you want them to be prepared to teach and play the game with the kids. So they'll need to plan ahead and know the rules, be able to read the rules or the adventure that you're going to play. Yeah, you'll want to choose an audience for your game, taking into consideration the age range of your players, the number of people you're going to have, and whether or not this is going to be something they register for, or if you're just going to take folks who walk in. Choosing the format for your program. So whether you're going to do continuous campaigns or a one-shot session. Continuous campaign is great if you either know that you're going to have the same group of people each time that you're playing so that you have the same players working through the same story, or if your game makes it easy to add and drop players on the fly that you can insert into your story. And if you don't have that, then one-shot sessions are really great. That's how we do ours, which I'll get into in a little bit. But one-shot sessions are great if you aren't sure you're going to have the same group of people. You can focus on short stories that you play in about an hour and a half and go through them that way. Choosing the time frame, so looking at the length of your program, how much time it's going to take to play and get through the rules, and the time of day that you're going to do that, if it's going to be something you do on the weekend or maybe it's an after school program. And then the location, whether you're going to do this in a classroom, in the school library, in your public library, or maybe you're partnering with a community center and using their space. And then you also need to think about the games that you're going to play. So looking at the theme that you want to delve into, the complexity, the time frame, and the audience that that game serves. Next slide, please. So this is an example of that frame with how we run our program at Naperville Public Library. For the facilitators, we started with 3 staff members. We don't use volunteers at Naperville at this time, but we may in the future. And we are focused on kids in grades 3 to 6. And we keep the participation around 5 kids per facilitator. This helps keep our groups small so that they can interact with each other, and allows each kid to have their moment to shine in the game and make sure everybody has a good amount of time to get some play in and focus on their characters. The format that we use is featuring role-playing and storytelling games as one-shots. We don't run any campaigns, but sometimes we do go back and play a game that was popular a second time. And we do require registration so that we know ahead of time how many kids we can expect for the session, and so that we make sure that we keep our group down to that 5 or 6 kids per facilitator for the audience size. And we run our program in an hour and a half. We set this up as a 15-minute introduction where we talk about the game we're going to play, go over some of our session rules, the game rules, and set up those expectations for play. And then we'll break into our 2 or 3 groups, depending on how many facilitators we have, and have an hour for the gameplay itself. And then we come back together as a big group again for 15 minutes so that we can share some of our favorite moments from our gameplay. This is one of my favorite things. Like, the gameplay is obviously a lot of fun, but I love when we come back together at the end as a big group, because everybody gets a chance to share the cool thing that their character did or what they really loved about the game. And this also gives us ideas for planning games in the future, because we can hear what they really loved, or sometimes, there might be something they really didn't like and they can share it during this time as well. For the location, ours is kind of an after school time club, and we meet in the main meeting room of our library. It's a really big room that kind of splits into 2, so it's easy for us to meet as a big group and then separate and then come back together. And for our games, we rotate our games each month. So we do one-shot scenarios for kid-friendly games, and one month we may be playing Magical Kitties Save the Day, as you can see in the photo on this slide. And then the next month we might be playing Kids on Brooms. And if there's a game that was really popular with them, then we might bring that game back in a later month. Next slide, please.
All right, this is the gaming group that I've most recently been running. This is Amanda. So this group is a group of 6th graders. I have 7 of them. They are actually a pre-existing trivia competition team, but I have them for an hour on Zoom every other week. And they need to do about 10 to 20 minutes of work. And then I have 40 minutes or half an hour, depending on how fast we are at the front end, to do whatever I want with them. And I, being me, decided that we would run a TTRPG, although we have no table, we are on Zoom. But so it's me and 7 6th graders, all 6th grade boys in this case, and I have them every other week. So having them every other week, I can run a campaign that is ongoing. In our first session, we developed a superhero style character with the game set Amazing Tales, which I've got in my picture there. And then they've had an ongoing adventure across now 10 sessions of these half-hour 45-minute chunks every other week. And they've been exploring with their superhero characters and learning things about the world that I've created for them here in Amazing Tales. So this would be a format you could follow if you had an existing group or you were stopping to visit the same classroom or the same group of kids. Yeah. And I'm going to pass it back to Rebecca for recommended.
For our recommended titles, at Naperville, we have a D&D program for our teen and adult players, but for our kids RPG club, we don't play D&D with them. We play all kinds of other things. And I know D&D is super popular. It's super popular and culturally mainstream, but there's a ton of other games out there that are great for kids or even specifically built for kids. And once we started playing these other games, our kids have never asked for D&D again, because they still get the same fun time exploring. Maybe they're doing magic stuff, maybe they're, doing a space exploration. They still get all that same fun with other games. And these games also, if what they're wanting to do is work up to playing D&D, all of these games still give the same skills that they're going to need to know how to play that game later. But there's so many other things out there, so we want to highlight a lot of those things that we love playing with our kids. So like I said, whether you're looking for fantasy, there's stuff with cute critters out there, robots, historical or modern settings. There's something for every player out there. And even if you don't find exactly what you're looking for, feel free to take these games and kind of mold and modify them into what you need, whether that's chucking out some rules to make the gameplay shorter for you, or changing the setting or the character names, or whatever it is that you want to change. You don't have to play these things as written. You can modify them as you need. So definitely, again, I want to mention that handout. There is a long list of games on our handout, and the handout includes blurb descriptions for those games and links to where you can find them, including the games on the slide here, but so many more. We couldn't talk about every game that we love today because we would be here for a very long time. And then we've also put together on the handout, you'll find a link to a collection of games on itch.io, which is a web platform largely used by indie game creators. And you can find all kinds of stuff, TTRPG full rule sets, adventure settings for other rule sets, fun character sheets and player aids. There's also video games on there. So if you're specifically looking for tabletop role-playing game stuff, just make sure you're looking at physical games. But we've put together a list of games on that platform that are good for running with kids and teens. But the ones that I'm going to talk about right now, the first is No Thank You Evil, which is published by Monty Cook Games. They recommend this game for ages 5 and up. And this game comes in a box with all the stuff that you need to play. So the rules, the dice, the cards for character creation, the player sheets, and an adventure. You can purchase additional adventures as supplements if you wish. The game only uses 6-sided dice. And the nice thing about this rule set is that the rules can play with character experience. The rules can scale with player experience. So you could start light and add more complexity later. So a new player might start as a robot. A not so new player might be a smart robot, but an experienced player might be a smart robot who experiments with science. And each of those things add character components that put more complexity in the game. So that's one of the things I really love about this game is the scalability of it. The next one is Tales of Equestria. This is published by Riverhorse. They don't list a publisher recommended age, but similar to No Thank You Evil, you could play this with 5 and 6-year-olds on up, helping them with reading where necessary. And the storytelling game book for this comes with the rule set and 1 adventure, but you can purchase additional adventures to play if you wish, or you can create your own. The fun thing about this game is if you have people who are really itching to play D&D and they want to use all of those dice, this game does use 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 20-sided dice. So you get the full dice experience with this game. And if you're wanting to save time with character creation, one of the things we do with this game is it comes with a huge list of character talents and character quirks that the kids can pick to add to their ponies. And one of the things we do to save time is provide a shortened list of those things so that they're not reading through really long lists and having that analysis paralysis of like, which cool thing do I pick? So we'll pick a list of maybe 6 of each of them that kind of fit well with the adventure, giving them skills that they're going to be able to make a lot of use of and have fun with in the adventure, and limit that decision-making time for them, because we do have our kids create their characters during the session. We don't often use pre-made characters because they like to customize, and that's part of the fun of playing. The next one is Magical Kitty Save the Day, which is published by Atlas Games. They recommend this game for 6 and up. I think you could still play it with 5-year-olds as long as you're helping them with any reading that needs to be done. But this game also comes in a box with all the stuff that you need to play. So again, the rules, the dice, the cards that you're drawing to make your character, the character sheets, and an adventure. This game also does have supplemental adventures that you can purchase, and it uses 6-sided dice. In Magical Kitty Save the Day, the characters are playing as magical cats, and they're trying to save their humans from the silly situations that humans get themselves into all the time. Players in this game have 3 attributes and a talent, a flaw, and a magical power. If you were trying to save time in this game or make character creation a little easier in the beginning, you could leave out the talent and the flaw and then add those as players gain experience with the game. This one is really fun because, I mean, it's cats and magic and just like romping through forests and cities saving your humans, which our kids have really loved a lot. The next one is Amazing Tales, which is written by Martin Lloyd. This has a recommended age of any age, so it's a pretty fluid game. The main rule book has the rules and character creation information, and then 4 setting examples, and it provides you with seeds to start a story. The game uses 6, 8, and 12-sided dice. You could play with just 6-sided dice if you wanted to, but they do recommend for the full experience of the game to have those 4 different dice types. And in the game, characters have 4 skills, and they'll assign 1 die to each of their skills, with their very best skill getting the 12-sided dice and on down. The game is very fluid and rules light. Basically, you're going to be choosing the setting that you're playing in and the story seed to get started. The players will create their characters, and you'll introduce that story seed to them and see what they want to do. And from there, it's kind of a back and forth story building conversation of seeing what they want to do. And if they want to attempt to do something that is difficult, then you can pick a skill that they have and have them roll their die and see what happens. You could, if you wanted to, even play this with really young kids without the dice at all and just have that back and forth storytelling conversation with them. And it gets them kind of into that creative thinking mindset. But it's a great entry into role-playing games and really great for storytelling, story building. The next one here is Cloud Dungeon, which is written by Anti Games. Again, this publisher doesn't have a recommended age, but you could play it generally with any age as long as you're helping them with any reading that might come up. The game book includes the rules and the adventure. And this is actually part of a series. So there's the Cloud Dungeon, the Sunken Dungeon, which is the Cloud Dungeon 2, and then a third separate game called Expelled. And these are all DIY role-playing games where you're actually going to be coloring in the book, or you could print out the sheets if you don't want to color in the book. But there's coloring, you're going to be cutting stuff out, gluing stuff together. The character sheets, as your characters find objects or companions, you're going to be coloring those and adding them to their character sheet. When health is lost, you're ripping little hearts off of the character sheet. So it's a really interactive gameplay experience, and it's a lot of chaotic fun. We've played 2 of the games in this series so far, and they've gone over really well. A lot of our kids love that they can color or draw during the game. You can also run this game without a game master. The game is kind of designed where you could just pick up the book without having read through it at all and just go through and play the game. I do recommend, though, if you're running a program for it, that whoever is going to be leading that program read through the book so that you can have the sheets printed out ahead of time that the kids are going to need to color their character. The battle interaction sheets. There's some sheets where they get to go shopping with money that they found. Print those out ahead of time so that you're not having to print those on the fly. But it's a really great experience where if you didn't have a whole bunch of GMs, they could play this in a group on their own and go through the book with someone who's acting as a facilitator, as long as there's printer access. So that one's really fun. And then Tiniest Wizard, which is the one up in the corner, that whole little graphic that you see there, that's the game. It fits on a business card and it is very free form. It's great for playing in a physical space because the idea of this is when you create your character, you take that business card and you stick it in a book. You look at a word above and below the card. Those are the 2 spells that you have. You can interpret your spells however you want. If your word is silver, silver could be anything from literal silver to maybe it's a disco ball, like however they can creatively think of how to turn that word into a spell, it works. They get to use each spell 2 times, and each time they use it, the spell can be used in a different way. So they could interpret that 2 times within the story. Movement in the game is done by flinging the business card into the air and seeing where it lands. So you could set up a room that has a few things out in the space to give them some ideas of what they're encountering. But when they throw the card, they move to the card and they're going to look around the space and interpret what they see as the environment that they're playing in. So maybe a fan becomes a hurricane or a chair becomes a mountain that they have to climb. It's really fun to move around and see how they use their imagination to turn a room into this epic adventure. And the game itself does not use dice, but you can always add rules. Because it's so rules light and fluid, you can add ways that you can use dice in this game because our kids love using dice. And the other thing that we've done with this is combine Tiniest Wizard with other games. So recently we combined Tiniest Wizard with the board game Monstrosity. So it was a mystery adventure where they were encountering monsters that they had to draw based on a description, and they were moving about the space using the Tiniest Wizard rules, and it was a really great kind of whodunit mystery adventure with all kinds of alien monsters that they were trying to track down. So those are some of our favorites, and I hope you'll take a look at them and they'll become your favorites too. Next slide.
Amanda, you're muted.
Technical glitch, 1 second.
Okay.
I see someone in chat saying they immediately went to download Cloud Dungeon. It is so fun. I played it with my 4-year-old niece and it was like literally any age. It's cutting and coloring and gluing and fun. All right, now Amanda's
All
back.
right. Apologies. I'm back. Apparently, if we stay on one slide long enough, my computer, she sleeps. All right. So I thought that we would also talk. So we're particularly doing tabletop role-playing game for kids. And I've been lucky enough to lead a bunch of tabletop role-playing games with kids. It's the best. And there are some player types that recur. So I thought I would give you some of the kinds of players you might get at your table and some strategies for interacting with them and making tabletop role-playing game the best for them. So my first player type is the quiet one. We in libraries know this person. Many of us are introverts. This is the shy child who is not sure. Tabletop role-playing games sound awesome. They've signed up or their parent has signed them up. They are here and they are not sure what to do. And they are quiet and they will look at things, but they do not speak even when asked to speak. And some ways I found to really get them engaged is if everyone is voting on an action, they will vote, right? Should we go into the forest or on the boat in the river? I'm going to need everyone to give me a boat or forest vote. I'll go around the table. The quiet one will usually give me a vote. Also, if it's their turn or their time to guide the action, I will give them a choice that requires few words. Like, are you going to open the door or not? You just have to tell me open or not, and then we'll roll dice and see what happens. So giving them a chance to use their voice, but in small doses while they get comfortable. I also like to look for moments when their inventory or skills, so on their player sheet, maybe they have a magical spell that other people in your group don't have. They have the unlock spell. And so I will look at them when there's a moment that we've come to a locked door, because if they know they're the only one who can solve it, they may step up to the plate and really shine. So those are some ways to engage your quiet or shy player. And over time, we've certainly had quiet or shy players who became very chatty. Indecisive. This is a similar player, but this one is just not sure if now is the moment to use their weapon, if now is the moment to use their spell, if maybe they should save those things. Some of them are sort of like, what if I need it more later? So I like to also, like the quiet one, give them limited options, say, are you going to open the door or not? That sort of thing. And then I like to praise decisions that they do make. If they make a bold choice, praise them having made that decision. You've decided to use your spell at this time. That's great. That's wonderful. Let's see what happens. Because that kind of encouragement is really helpful for someone who had trouble making the decision. And then I like to remind them that fun is more important than whether you played your optimal game. Sometimes this person is a little worried about whether they're doing it right. And the answer is, if you're having fun at the table, you're doing tabletop role-playing game right. So I like to remind them that as long as we're having fun, if they used their spell and it backfired and it went horribly and everyone, ended up in a fire pit and we had to put out that fire and be creative, then if we had fun doing all of that, they made the right call. The fidgeter, this is the person who won't leave their dice alone. They drop things, they tap their table. They're always, if you give them a piece of paper, it becomes a crumpled ball of goo. So one thing with this is, in my programs, I invite those players to bring fidgets with them. If you have a non-electronic fidget, I don't want you to bring your phone or your tablet or another game to play. But if you've got a non-electronic fidget that you want to bring with you, explicitly inviting players to bring those to the table with them. And then this is a great player to include physical challenges. So that tiny wizards game where you're throwing your card and then racing to where your card is, or I've on the fly, when I've had this person at the table, decided that, okay, we were all going to chant this spell, but we are going to chant this spell, stand up and walk around the table 4 times whilst chanting, because it is time for the fidgeter to move. So looking for some almost live action role-playing elements that have movement to work into your game is a great way to relate to your fidgeter. Also using a focus anchor. So a focus anchor is just, if you're a teacher, you've probably heard of these. It's just a way to pull the classroom's eyes back to you. So, if I say eyes on who, I want you all to say eyes on you, game master. Great. So now when the fidgeter is sort of dropping their dice and all over the place, I will say eyes on who, and hopefully everyone will respond with eyes on you, game master. You can make those focus anchors game specific. So I'm going to do Raccoon Sky Pirates. When I say trash, y'all are going to say panda. Anytime in the game when I say trash, I need you all to say panda. And we'll do that. And that'll help our fidgeter or our sort of perhaps ADHD child come back around to the game. Oops. The one who wants to win. How do I win this game? How do I win this game? Well, tabletop role-playing games, we are often playing as a collective. We're playing as a group with a mission. We are often not playing against each other. There may be some games that are player versus player, but I wouldn't recommend them with kids. So you can remind this player that we all win if our delivery dragons collectively manage to deliver their package to the wizard. That's our goal. That's how you're going to win. So you remind them that we are all succeeding or failing together. And then if this player, the one who has expressed to you that they want to win, does something in the game that helps that mission, point out their win. Oh my gosh, you got us across the river to get this package to the wizard. You helped us. You are part of our collective win. So those are some ways to help the one who wants to win. This is one of our most challenging players at the table, the destroyer. The destroyer comes in many forms. We've had the destroyer who will look at the very helpful non-player character that you've introduced who is giving the party information to help them in the quest and ask very helpfully, can I poison them? Okay, so this one is one thing to do with them is to take them and have the team vote. So we have a very helpful non-player character. Our destroyer would like to poison them. Let's vote at the table and see if we collectively think it is a good idea to poison this helpful character. And usually your team will vote that it is not helpful and you will move on from there. The other thing to note is that your destroyer wants something to destroy. You are the game master. You can give them something to destroy, whether it's a horde of goblins, a large wall that needs to be blown up to move on in the game. You've got options here to give them something acceptable to destroy. If they are a more rogue-like destroyer, you can give them a mission that's a little bit underhanded. Maybe you really do have to steal something to move on in the game or do something a little bit trickster. So you can give them something acceptable to destroy. You can have your team vote. And when redirections fails, I would recommend with the destroyer that you not punish them in the game, that you pull them out of the game and you let them know that the actions that they're choosing are running counter to the fun of your group as a whole, and you're not going to allow them. And we've had a couple destroyers, we've had a couple of very nice kids that we've had to pull out of the game and say, what you're doing here is really making this game less fun for everyone. So we're going to have you take a break until you're ready to come back to the game. This is one of my favorite ones, the one who is playing their own game, right? This is usually a younger player, and they usually are very familiar with the concept of make-believe. And in their games on the playground, they're used to being able to assert whatever they want. So they don't yet have that tabletop role-playing games are games with some rules. This is the one who, when we were all pirates and everyone had a pirate sheet, said, I get out my laser pistol and I shoot it. You have a saber and a parrot. You do not have a laser pistol. But I'm going to get out my laser pistol and I'm going to shoot it. Like, no, you're not. You have a sword and a parrot. So you need to refer them to the character sheets and any game materials you've given them that have their options for what they can do on their turn and the things that they have, and remind them that they are playing a game that has some rules. You also want to remind them that the dice determine the outcome, because even if they're using their sword, they'll say, I used my sword and I destroyed it and everything is great and I have saved the day and I've jumped across the chasm and I saved everyone. Wait, you got out your sword and you tried to do that. Let's roll the dice and we'll tell you what happens. And they'll usually buy that from you. You also, this person wants to narrate. They want to do storytelling with you. They're a strength for you. Give them moments to do it. You got out your sword, you slashed, you successfully cut the rope. Tell me what happened, but give them parameters. You were successful. Describe for me what that success looks like, or you epically failed. describe for me what that epic failure looks like. This player is a great one to have at your table, but you do have to remind them they do not have a laser pistol. The doodler. So finding games with those elements like Monstrosity, where you get to do some drawing, is great. We always like to have scratch paper, drawing implements, pencils and pens at the table, because the doodler will take their character sheet and show you what their character looks like. You can give them opportunities to doodle what their companion or pet looks like, their costume, their weaponry, the ship they ride in. Give them opportunities to doodle and share. They're also telling you that they are a visual person. So if you can provide them with maps or pictures of your NPCs, those are your non-player characters that they might meet along the way, they will enjoy that visual element. So those are some ways to play with your doodler. The one who wants the power. Don't we all? This is someone who will try to override other people at the table. So they will try to tell other people how they should play their game. So at my table, I request that only the active player speak and tell me what they're doing, because this player will be like, oh, you should do this, and then you should do this, and then you should do this. Well, that's great. But right now, Janet's going to tell us what she wants to do. So requesting that only the active players speak is a good way. If you have one who really wants the power, a good way to rein them in. And then let them, I will have, if I've got 6 players and a 6-sided die, I'll let you know who gets to make this decision. All I have to do is roll my 6-sided die and I can tell you, or I can have a spinner. This player also really wants their moment to shine. So letting them know and reminding them how long it is until it is their turn to shine. It is currently this person's turn, but in 2 turns, you'll get to do it. General trips. So these are just some general tips for tabletop role-playing games with kids. Everyone loves to get things. Everyone loves loot. Imaginary loot is free. So as you play your campaigns, give your kids treasure at the end. It's imaginary, but they can write it on their character sheet and they're excited to have it. I have never run a game with kids where they did not want a companion or pet. They seem to really love them. If you can incorporate them into your games, do. Props are fun. You'll see us there with our wands in the picture on the slide. It really helps to have visual prompts and player guides. So to have a character sheet in front of you and maybe a list of what you might be able to take as actions on your turn. Say yes as often as you can. Common improv rule. If you say yes to kids, they'll have more fun. Pick games that you love to share with kids. So if you're not passionate about it, it's harder to share your passion with children. If you do have a larger group that you split, try to keep a balance of player types. You don't want the all quiet ones and you don't want the all fidgeters. Try to mix it up. Game masterless games. So some of those games Rebecca described where you don't need a game master are perfect ones to be your first one. If you are new to leading tabletop role-playing games, this one doesn't even need a game master, but you'll be the game master or facilitator and the game will lead itself a little bit. So those are good first ones. And rules schmools, the game master is the rules. If it's not working, you can adjust it on the fly and improv it. If what you've planned doesn't work and it's time for everyone to get up and do a silly dance to unlock the thing, then it's just time to have everyone stand up and do a silly dance. This is my dice tip, which is in my games, I've managed to buy dice that are all the same color. So when I ask them to roll their D10, which is the 10-sided die, I just say, get your yellow die, get your yellow die. And when I want the D20, the 12-sided die, I say, get the red die. And it just has made it a lot easier. And there's a lot less of, does this one have 10 sides? Props are fun. A bunch of different props we've used, and I think I've got some of them on the next slide. Props do not have to be complicated. I have a bag of foreign coins that I use as gold. We've used paper currency. We've made wands out of paper. As children's librarians, we have a lot of puppets and stuffed animals. Any of them can come and be non-player characters for you. Costumes can be anything in your costume closet. These are some props. The loot chest. My bag of foes is literally some small toys in a dice bag. And when we wonder what we encounter in the dungeon, I'll let the child pick out of there. And it might be a dinosaur. It might be a hippo. It might be a giant baby. It's going to be something from the bag, but they sort of get to pick what it might be. That's some laminated money. Those are tiny hands that you put on your fingers, and I have used them for various physical challenges. So you need to move all the Tinker toys out of this bucket using your tiny hands. And the boom button is one that I will stick on my thing, and I will tell them what happens when they push it if they choose to. Some other useful things to have on hand.
Yes, this slide is just, I was going through photos to include in this presentation, and I saw this photo and I was like, oh, that's a table full of like the most common things that we use in our sessions beyond like the game itself. So the first is clipboards. Clipboards are great if you like to wander like I do as the GM. I can have my clipboard with my paper and all my characters, information on it, and still be able to write. But they're also really great for the fidgeter. If they want to walk around, you can give them their character sheet on a clipboard and they can walk or sit on the floor or wherever they're comfortable. Having dice trays so that they keep their dice hopefully a little more contained. It gives them something to aim at. It doesn't always work, but they're nice and fun to have. We create little player kits using this photo storage container, and inside the kit we put a set of role-playing dice, a pencil. You could also add a little blank standee that they could use a dry erase marker to draw on, but just the general things that they're going to need each time, so when they come in they just pick a box and they sit at the table and they've got the things that they need to play. And then if you have kids who don't have their own dice or anything like that, they don't have to worry. They know you're going to have what they need to play, and it's easily organizable and easy to store, we found with these. Having colored pencils out on the table, our kids love to draw. They ask for drawing games all the time. Even if we're not playing something where they are drawing, they will draw their own characters. They will draw their companions. They will draw the magical staff that they have found. They're going to draw it somewhere. So have colored pencils and have paper available, scratch paper available for them to do that drawing on. And I think that's our last slide. So now we're open to Q&A.
Excellent. And if you'll drop the last, oh yeah. So if anybody needs any questions after this session or thinks of anything, we're going to go right into questions, but I wanted to link the slide deck today so that way everybody can be able to contact Rebecca and Amanda. But to start off, let's go into the questions. Heidi Bryson asks, what TTRPGs have you found that are most successful with the younger groups, ages 3 to 6, and then also like middle grades as well?
Our favorites are on the ones that I had on that slide. No Thank You Evil is really popular. We've played that one a couple of times. Magical Kitty Save the Day, we've also played multiple times. Kids on Brooms or Kids on Bikes. If you have a group of kids who are kind of looking for that like Stranger Things, like kids in a neighborhood on their bikes going at like looking to solve troubles, Kids on Bikes and Kids on Brooms is really great for that. And I'm completely blanking right
I've
now.
really loved both Amazing Tales
Amazing
and
Tales,
the
yeah.
Story Masters Tales have both been really excellent choices for that age group.
Yeah, and Story Masters Tales, there is an entry for it on our handout for today, but I wanted to note when we played it, the publisher, the author of that game has a group on Facebook, and if you post in the group saying that you are a library and you're using his game, he might make a super cool video for you in his wizard character. We were able to play it for our kids before we played, and it was really cool because he mentioned our library by name, and he mentioned our game guides who were running the game by name as like the wizards in the story, and it was super cool.
You see, the
Excellent.
next question is, how do we keep sessions to just 1 hour? So I usually for various games will have different maybe stopping points, and then I just keep track of time and stop as we get close to time. Yeah.
Yeah, and setting the expectation for them in the beginning that this is the amount of time that we have to play. We always start out, saying we're going to do the rules and intro for this long. We're going to go play for an hour, and then we're all coming back together so that we can talk at the end. And just learning to be flexible with your story and knowing on the fly things that you can cut or change if you need to end your story early.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got the next couple of questions look like they're about expectations for D&D and this not being D&D, and recruiting people or getting them familiar with the concept of what you're doing when they know Dungeons and Dragons, but they don't know TTRPG. I, in my publicity materials, will say, I'm playing Amazing Tales. It's a tabletop role-playing game like D&D, but with a simpler rule set for kids. Like, I'll explicitly put out there for parents, this is a tabletop role-playing game. You may be familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. This one is a simpler rule set. So,
Yeah.
and yeah.
And a lot of times that expectation comes simply because in popular media, D&D is what is talked about. They don't know that these other games exist. Once they know about these other games and they know they're still going to be rolling dice, they can still fight dragons, they can still go dungeon delving, they can still do all of those things in all of these other games. It's just more ways for them to have fun. And you may have kids who push back and really want to play D&D, but for the most part, we have been very successful in just kind of expanding their role-playing game world by letting them know there's other stuff out there.
Yeah, I do have a dream of someday running parent and child Dungeons and Dragons, but there's a lot of mechanics to 5e to Dungeons and Dragons, and I am not an expert by any means on that. There's a lot fewer mechanics in any of the games that Rebecca talked about earlier, which makes it a much easier proposition for me to lead a game. And it's a lot easier for kids when the mechanics are lighter, and they don't have to. You're also, if you've got that limited 1 hour, you can spend an hour creating your Dungeons and Dragons character, and then you've played not at all. Whereas in No Thank You Evil, you're going to spend 10 minutes creating your character, and then you get to have adventures. So yeah.
Oh, on specifically Amazing Adventures, is it a sort of choose your own adventure? Asked Donna Forbes.
It's it doesn't it's very rules light, and so it's mostly the storyteller and the children making up a story together with a little bit of dice rolling that guides that story.
Yeah, it's not like a pre-written adventure where you're reading prompts and choosing what to do. The story is really fully guided by your player's imagination. So the book will give you seeds, like you're a space pirate and you have to go collect something from this asteroid somewhere. And you tell them that story seed and ask them, what do you want to do? And from there, it's back and forth. You could like make a more structured story if there's specific things you want to hit, but it really is a back and forth
Yeah,
kind of open free play.
The Big Book of Amazing Tales, which is another book. There's the Amazing Tales rule set and the Big Book of Amazing Tales. And the Big Book of Amazing Tales does have more preset adventures, and it's nice because it has some of the puzzles that you might introduce to the kids with the solutions for you as the game master and that kind of material.
Excellent. And so with all of these various games that you have, what do you do when you're not using them? Do you circulate into the collection?
At Naperville, we do circulate games. I try to get a digital copy of anything that I want to use for a program, but otherwise we circulate the physical copies of our rule books at all 3 of our locations.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if
we circulate some of the games, but I like to keep copies that are professional copies for me, just so that I know I have them and they have all their pieces and all of their materials with them. So I wouldn't necessarily circulate the copy that I was counting on having for gameplay.
Yeah, and having these games in circulation is another great way to get your kids off of the "but I only want to play D&D" thing. If you can show them and they can check these things out, it's easier for them to do a little bit of the reading on their own and get excited about playing those games.
And then we have a couple improv questions. So to start, do you find it worth it to open with improv games to set the tone?
I usually open with the improv game of, we created a character, now tell me a little bit about them. Or I will ask a question about their character, like, what's your character's favorite dessert? And I will let them improv as their character to give them a little practice doing that.
Yeah, same.
Nice. And then another commenter asks, they say they love using yes and, but sometimes with kids it can get out of hand really quickly. How do you balance that with diminishing enthusiasm?
So when it gets too zany or crazy,
Yeah, like you say yes and then they just kind of keep running with it. Take a mile.
I will usually go with, and now the dice are going to tell us what happens here. Like we did one yes, we're going to roll some dice for a while, resolve that yes before we get to the next yes.
And if the yes that they're looking for is something really big, like some magical sword that they want or something, you could change it to a yes but, where the thing they want becomes the quest and they have to do things to fulfill the yes that they're looking for.
Awesome. Sorry, I muted myself. But on that kind of issue, Kenny asks, how do you determine what is and is not appropriate for the game? Just kind of a large question, but you can shrink it down as however you need.
A lot of that, I mean, starting with the age of the players that you're playing with is going to be the biggest thing, whether you're keeping, like if it's just G or PG. But really, if you have like a little bit of session zero time before you start playing, where you talk to the kids about the game that you're going to be playing, the setting that it's going to be in, and give them the opportunity to let you know about things that they are not okay with. If you mentioned that you're going to be, playing a game that's in a cave and a kid tells you, oh, like spiders really, really creep me out. I don't think I can play a game if there's spiders in here. Don't put spiders in your cave. And this will become easier the more you play with them. You'll learn about the things that they like and the things that bother them, but giving them that opportunity to voice their concerns in the beginning and setting the tone is a great way to start.
Nice. And so you've talked about specific age groups, but what about mixed age groups? So one of our watchers has a group of 8-year-olds and a 13-year-old and their grandmother. Any tips on keeping kind of everybody entertained all at the same time?
I love it. Yeah, in family groups, I've played with that wide an age range, and just giving everyone their moment to shine. Yeah, and I'm not like, again, it depends on what kind of players you have, but I think that the role-playing game is a great time for ages 8 to 80 to play together.
Yeah, and one of the games that I mentioned earlier, No Thank You Evil, the characters' abilities, you can scale those. So if you have, a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 50-year-old, and you can give the 5-year-old is just a robot, maybe the 13-year-old is a smart robot, and the 50-year-old is the smart robot who experiments with science. So adjusting the rules, don't get stuck in the mindset that you have to play the rules by the book, but you can adjust things even within a single game. If you need to make adjustments for younger kiddos, you can do that.
Well, now a couple questions on more kind of tangibles. So do either of you use miniatures and how, or do you just use theater of the mind for the games you play?
I've done both. I do like it when they get to like color and design their own miniature and we give it a stand. And particularly if I've got any sort of map or movement component, I like to have miniatures on the board. But we've also just done theater of the mind. It's dependent on the game.
Yeah, same here. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
And then Rebecca, if you could mention again the kinds of things you would want to put in the player's kit in a little bit more detail.
Oh yeah. So we always include pencils and dice as the default. You're going to need those for pretty much every game you play. Some other things that you can put in there are you can get little, I don't think I put this on the handout. I will link it in the handout afterwards, but you can get little, they're like little white plastic standees and you can draw on them with a dry erase marker. So if you put that with a dry erase marker in there, if you're doing a game where you have a map and you're moving miniatures around, they can draw their own character, or you can draw characters or foes or companions on there. Those are nice to have. But we just keep those kits simple. You could add even more things that are game specific, like little tokens that go with your game or potion tokens or things like that. But the pencil and dice and some kind of uh, adaptable minifig is a good way to go.
Nice. And now we have a couple questions on kind of community building aspects. So do you have partnerships with local stores or groups?
For our role-playing club specifically, we don't have a partnership. We have worked with one of our local game stores for other gaming programs, but not specifically for our role-playing game club.
Yeah,
But you could,
my role playing has been in-house too, so we haven't.
yeah. And partnership, if you're short on staff and you can partner with a local gaming store to have them facilitate as extra GM hands, that's a great partnership opportunity.
Excellent. And then on your groups, how do you build that base of players? Do you have them sign up? Do you offer regular programming? Do you have a minimum age or maximum age? Those kinds of questions.
I currently don't have like a regular in library program. What I've been doing is one shots timed for days off school, and that's been working for me. So signed up a couple weeks before. I've got a couple running for spring break. We had a teacher institute day. So I look for those days off school when a parent might be looking for a longer chunk of time, because I'm often running at hour and a half for my programs. And I haven't had trouble getting kids who are looking for an hour and a half program on a day off school.
Yeah, at Naperville, we have our, we call it Adventurers Club, but it's our 3rd to 6th grade RPG club, and they meet once a month. They do register ahead of time. We limit it to 5 or 6 kids per facilitator, and they meet once a month. I do ask if any parents want to be like on a little gaming program email list so that when the new season of sessions goes up, I can email them and they can get registered. But ours is a monthly recurring.
And we are almost at time, but a couple questions left. So if anybody needs to leave, please be assured we're going to record everything. So you can go ahead and go whatever meetings or duties as assigned you need to go to. But we have just a few more of, do you know any kid-friendly play-by-post RPGs? I don't know any.
Uh, I
Have
think
it.
that you could easily use Amazing Tales as a play-by-post RPG because it's so rules light and fluid. It would work kind of like in a play-by-post asynchronous mode.
Excellent. And Amanda, you talked about various strategies for all the different types of players, but what would you recommend for the lone wolf who doesn't want to work with the group and might want to split off?
So I do like to keep the party together. So if you have a player, I think of them as the saboteur rather than the lone wolf. They often have an objective that is a little chaotic or a little different than what you've placed in front of your group as a task. And sometimes I've had success with giving that player a side task. So you're going to stay with the group, my saboteur, but it is your goal, to collect as many X along the way as you can, or you are trying to guide your party into the darkness. So if you find darkness along our quest, you are going to try to convince the rest of the party to go into the cave, to go into the mine, to go into the dark forest. That is your goal, is to draw your party into darkness. So giving them a side goal is something that's worked for me. And then, if they really are counter to fun, I will pull them out of the game and give them a talking to.
And Simone, for your question about where you can find No Thank You Evil, I've just posted resource links for today's session. There's a link on how to go find No Thank You Evil and all those good things. And one last question for everybody, to both of you. Oh, thank you, Rebecca, also for just linking it. Excellent. So is there your favorite, best non-D&D RPG that you can think of off the top of your head that you love beyond measure?
Oh, I love so many.
Just one.
Just one child, my friends.
I really enjoy Magical Kitty Save the Day. Like you get to be a magical cat and you're saving humans from silly things, and it comes with lots of different adventures, and it also gives you a guide for building your adventures. And it's just a lot of fun. It comes with cards if you want to use them to build the character, and it's got a lot of good stuff with it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Excellence, which is the one I've lately had the most fun. It's a polymorph game, and the graphics are adorable. And if you have a group who have loved things like Steven Universe, this is your game. It's just been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, presenters, for coming and talking with us today and sharing your expertise and experience. Thank you, audience, for all your questions and your comments. If you have any questions post this session for the presenters, please feel free to hit them up. Their information is on the slide deck that has been linked below. And then if you have any questions for the roundtable, you can always contact us on gamert@ala.org or any of our various websites. So thank you once again. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic day. And we look forward to seeing you at more Games RT events. Bye bye, all.
Bye, everybody.